Hey there, welcome to the Stormwater World podcast. After 10 years in the stormwater industry, I feel like I've only scratched the surface of all there is to learn. I believe there are a lot of people just like me who are curious, but we're all just so busy. So I'm going to ask the questions so we can get the answers together. My name is Ty Garman, and I'm your host. Join me as we learn about what is happening in the stormwater world. Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of the Stormwater World podcast. We are going to talk about some green infrastructure today and how the stormwater industry is and should be kind of leaning in that direction, or at least combining the efforts of what we have out in the stormwater industry with what's going on with green infrastructure. And we're going to talk with another good friend of mine, both inside and outside of the stormwater industry. Eric Rominger is with us with Aqua Shield, and we are going to talk about a new product they have on the horizon that deals in green infrastructure. But before we get to that, Eric, welcome to the pod. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ty. First, I want to say thanks for just putting this together and your patience in putting this together, because I know I wanted to be a lot higher on that list of these podcasts. But it's just,
man, it's all good.
Time.
So for all of our listeners out there, Eric could have been episode number 3. We may or may not have had a snafu in a previous recording, but it's all good. It's all good. So, but hey, before we talk about the new product that you have out there that leans, like I said, into the green infrastructure, as I continue to tease that topic. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, for those that don't know Aqua Shield or know you? Eric is, let me start out by saying Eric is a vice president with Aqua Shield, which is now a Comline company. And I'll let you take it from there and kind of go a little bit through your stormwater history.
Yeah, so for me to get into stormwater is kind of a rather unique path. You know, as I was finishing my chemical engineering degree, had an opportunity to literally upon graduation, moved to Southeast Asia, Singapore. So you can imagine my surprise when, owner of a small specialty chemical company, I'm just a lab rat working on different dry vinyl polymers for the geotechnical industry, comes to me and says, "Hey, we'd like you to move to Singapore upon graduation." And I'm like, "Where's that? I don't even have a passport," So it's just a really, unique opportunity to get into the construction world as a chemical engineer initially. And then, spent several years in Southeast Asia building Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines. And then ultimately the Asian recession hit in the late 90s and brought me back to the U.S. into the big dig. So again, still in the construction world, and ultimately eventually moved into a Fortune 500 sales company with plastics, again, polymer additives kind of being that background. Did that for a couple of years as a road warrior sales guy. And then had a unique opportunity with the Society of Plastic Engineers, met the really good friend with the president, and ended up recruiting me to become an executive recruiter. It's like, you ever thought about executive recruiting? You got sales background, technical background. I thought, I think I'll take a chance on myself. So I did that for several years in the early 2000s. So I was living the laptop lifestyle 20 years, well in advance, right? So it was really a cool opportunity. Ended up moving back to Chattanooga, met my wife, and we started thinking about starting a family. And a job opportunity came open for a startup company for Aqua Shield that was looking for, plastic, basically hydrodynamic separation. And I kind of always had an affinity to obviously construction, but also with the plastics background, and thinking, well, I've got international experience, I've got sales experience, I've got recruiting experience. So I just knocked on the door of the owner and said, "Hey, I think there's a great fit here." I was a third employee in 2003, and just right place, right time. And it's just been a tremendous opportunity to be in the stormwater for this is my 20th year now.
20 years. Congratulations.
Yeah,
wow. See, I think I've been here forever, just in the little 11 years, and I keep interviewing all you folks, and you got 20 plus years on me. So lots of changes that you've gotten to see.
Sure.
Well, hey, I would be remiss if we didn't touch on a Comline company. When I met you, it was just Aqua Shield. So now it's a Comline company, and I'm nosy, and I think our listeners are nosy. And in our industry, it seems like everybody's buying and selling each other. So Obviously, it looks like there was an acquisition made there. You want to touch on that and kind of how that's been going for you?
What a great opportunity. In 21, October of 21, Comline, basically it's a family ran business started in 1946, and they're in the wastewater world of capital equipment for sludge processing, paddle dryers. I mean, just a tremendous amount of great capital equipment, great intel. In fact, the family has got the second generation and the third generation Comline still in the business. So it's really to see that legacy is just tremendous. Brilliant folks. We've got a young CEO that's just now got some investors and stacking companies. So went out, and AquaShield was the fourth acquisition in 21. Since then, we've picked up two more companies. So we're a total of 6 business units, ultimately within Comline, but just a well breadth of, filtration through the in industrial applications, automotive industry. We've got ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, reverse osmosis, grinders, grind mill. It just goes on and on. So we've got just a really good group of guys, and just really fortunate that it's a great acquisition for AquaShield, so that now that we can get some even more growth and potential. We've got a great set of investors that believe in what we're doing, and the horizon looks great.
Yeah, future looks bright. That's always good to be able to have an engine behind the mission that you guys are trying to provide. So again, I always assume everybody knows everybody, right? And it's just not true. It's just not true, which is the whole point of this pod. So let's just take a minute and talk briefly about kind of like the overall product line that AquaShield offers, what it is specifically that those products do, and then the differentiator, right? Because I think you're in a very competitive market in the products that you do provide the industry. So if you want to kind of touch on kind of like, the basics, like talk to me like I'm in kindergarten of what of what AquaShield is providing, and then how are you guys different from your competitors out there?
Sure. So AquaShield, really, our focus is in the water quality aspect. So really within the stormwater world, it's kind of the 3 legs of water quality, water quantity, and conveyance, ultimately. But for our niche, we're looking at typically end-of-pipe type of applications. Historically, we started at end-of-pipe applications. So kind of cut our teeth a little bit on point source devices. It's not a really big product for us. But really the Aqua Swirl as a hydrodynamic separator at the end of pipe application is really our main product. I mean, it again separates fine different types of particles, floating oils and debris. Then we've got a treatment train approach where we're using the Aqua Swirl as a pre-treatment and then mechanically filtering the product through our Aqua Filter product. So all of these, again, are just focusing on that first flush of rain, the most polluted part of the storm, so we can concentrate and take out that and improve water quality for our rivers, streams, and creeks.
Wow. So in a 20-year career, Eric, you've seen, I mean, let's put that in perspective for a second. I mean, you talk about, you got started in what you said, 2003. Is that right? I mean, so like the iPhone came out in like 2007, 8-ish. So like not only has the world seen technological advances, I mean, the stormwater industry, I've only got 11 years. I mean, you've seen a lot of stuff. So like, kind of break that down for our listeners. Like what, and it doesn't have to necessarily be around, AquaShield products or whatever, but just your, being ingrained in our industry, the things that you've seen, the changes that you've been through, and then, kind of what's next, or where are we going with all this as far as stormwater goes?
Sure. Well, looking back, starting off, I guess the early narrative of EPA was 80% TSS, total suspended solids removal. And I remember back, trying to define what the basis of design was. Ultimately, these are all separation type technology. So we're working off of gravity. And remember when we talked with engineers, to try to size units, we didn't really have a kind of an idea of how we were going to even size them. Ultimately, we would ask, what's the 10-year flow? And we'd just say, take a third of the 10-year flow type of thing. Or, ultimately got down to a 1-year or 2-year event. At the end of the day, we're trying to size based on the first flush, the initial most polluted part of the storm, the first inch of rain per se. But what we saw, though, through the years was just a tremendous amount of the education curve of not only computational fluid dynamic modeling of these types of water quality devices, but then moving into scaled lab testing, and then ultimately taking that lab test and taking it out into the field and how these things work actually in the field. And I remember even just, 5-10 years ago where we were still having that conversation because, different markets matured at different times, right? And, some of the leading areas early on was in the Midwest, believe it or not. Indianapolis was a really, and still is to this day, a really proactive market in defining, what water quality means and setting those, standards. But ultimately taking that narrative of 80% of what, using that EPA narrative of 80% TSS, and you go to the municipalities and say, well, 80% of what? A 50 micron particle or a 500 micron particle have different settling velocities if we're talking about Stokes' law of engineering principles. And so getting to an industry standard, and what we rested on several years ago was an OK 110 sand, had a particle size ranging from 50 microns to 150 microns. That was kind of our surrogate, our basis of design. But again, as the education curve came in, we were able to start manipulating and further refining, and so much so that the lab testing now, New Jersey is kind of a leading clearinghouse that's defined a particle size, less than 75 microns. You've got Washington DOE that's also on the West Coast that's defining, regulations for water quality, and even now with the green infrastructure as well, with even New Jersey with green infrastructure. So we've just seen a lot of transitions. And again, it just attributes to the people that have come to the industry and just taking this transfer of knowledge from the wastewater world and then just kind of creating this stormwater community.
Let's circle back. I feel like we talked a little bit. We touched on the Aqua Shield, family of products, but tell me, what's some differentiators? Like, what makes you guys, as a manufacturer of those products, what makes you guys different? What makes you stand out? Is it installation? Is it customer service? Is it for the materials you're building with? What's the differentiator there?
A couple of things. At first, I almost have to believe that our customer service and our staff is really just tremendous. From our engineering department, our R&D, our operations, even admin, we really do a tremendous job in really valuing the customer. The part of, I guess, with Aqua Shield, I guess what separates us is really on the product side is we manufacture all the products out of polymer coated steel or high density polyethylene opposed to a concrete structure. So when these things are designed, our engineering department has already defined, basically customized these units such that the inlet and outlet stub outs are already welded. The risers to finish grade, they're already all mapped out such that when they arrive on the job site, these units are literally coming right off of the truck, right into the ground, and we're just plumbing the pipes and connecting the inlet and outlet stub outs. It's just site engineered, custom site specific engineered design. But I tell you what really makes us different is because we're such a small but mighty team, we've got a long longevity. This is my 20th year, but I've got an engineering manager that's been 17 years, a research scientist that's been here 18 years. We've got a lot of longevity. Our R&D manager's over 15 years. So our youngest CAD is 5 years. So we work so well together, and I can't really put it into words. It's just one of these things that just happens. We work so efficiently. The right hand knows what the right hand does, and we're so efficient in our drawings, in our fabrication, communications, and we get those compliments from our customers, from our independent sales agents across the board, and it just fuels us just to keep on driving, and just really humbled and appreciative to be part of the team, to be honest. It's just an amazing group of talent that we have. And then, take that type of mentality, because I really focus a lot on the people, put the right people in the right positions, the processes, so that we're always optimizing. Engineering is always optimizing. Research is always optimizing. And then ultimately the products putting the right products in the right markets, and take that type of strategy into our fabrication, so that they're putting the right welders in place, so that they're looking at their processes to improve their turnaround time, so we can get these things, fabricated as fast as possible and accurate as possible. We're hydrostatically testing each of these units. These are already watertight tested. You're not typically watertight testing a concrete structure. So that's a real big differentiator for AquaShield. So again, when these things arrive on the job site, up to 13 foot in diameter. I mean, it's an escorted permitted load. This thing comes off. You're looking at maybe 7 tons. Still can use a traco. We get a lot of repeat business when a customer has the opportunity to just concrete, and all of our competitors, there's a lot of competition. It's a great network, and it's difficult because some people just say, we've always used concrete. That's what we want to do. But if we can get somebody to try our AquaShield product, and they see how easy it is to install, and they see how much time that they can save and how much money they can save, we get a lot of repeat business. And that's been the secret of our success, is just continuing to just take on more markets and just get that awareness of these features and benefits.
And that's amazing. I think, just to kind of, reiterate what you just said, tenure is huge. Not having turnover is huge. I mean, we just went through a global pandemic. I mean, man, you should have that up on your website. You basically just told me that you have a core team of probably close to or over 50 years of experience, not just in the industry, but it sounds like almost 50 years of experience, combined experience, working together. I mean, who can say that? I think that is probably something that people don't realize how important that is, and how much, turnover that we see. And unless you go through it, if you've been through a situation or on an engineering team or whatnot, and you've been through those issues where there is turnover, and it's just very, you think you've got good processes in place to where it's fine. You can plug and play these people because they have the proper technical background, but it's nothing like those people that have worked together and they can almost finish each other's sentences on a project. So that's huge. I mean, you should put all those people up on your website or something, and showcase that strength that you guys have had as far as a team goes. But let me ask you this, before I know we're going to talk about your newer product, but I have another question. So let's just say, so if I'm a municipality, or even sometimes at some of these firms, right? I may do in a smaller city. This may be the only project I do in the next 5 years. Let's say of putting in an Aqua Filter or Aqua Swirl, the combination of the two. Whereas you all are doing this all the time, so you see the same questions, you see potentially the same mistakes or the same design errors or the same things that then you have to explain to me, the municipality, why they should go in a certain route, right? Like, so there's always these questions that come up over and over again, I would think. Is there anything like that, or am I totally out, off my rocker? Like, or is there something that you could share with a municipality that's like, hey, we see this all the time. If you have a project or you're thinking about a project, do this. Call us earlier. So, don't think of it this way, think of it that way, and that will save that person a lot of either time, money, or just headache. Is there any kind of examples you could provide of something like that?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit earlier. It comes back to defining that basis of design, because again, we're going to size based on the water quality flow rate, and each municipality is going to have a different rain pattern, right? So ultimately, what do they want to treat? What storm do they want to treat? But more importantly, at what particle size? And that's where we just get a lot of that. The municipalities, the deer in the headlights look, it's like, I don't know. I just know we need to remove 80% TSS. So we will typically come in and establish, or at least define a basis. And a lot of times it may look at the New Jersey. So New Jersey has been really thoughtful, and they've got, like I said, decided based on 75 microns and lower, as kind of a surrogate of a design, but it comes with a little bit of a struggle, a challenge in that, there's different, geological sedimentation. You might have sandy loam up in New Jersey, but you may have more clays down in Georgia. So you've kind of got to define what your municipality and what their goals are and what they want to treat. And once we have that data, we've got so much velocity and so much, data in terms of our removal efficiencies at various particle sizes that we can now size and meet, predicted the removal efficiencies to meet their needs.
Gotcha. So this is not a one size fits all situation. They really need to reach out, and that's what's going to save them, to where they're not just plucking a product off the shelf. You're actually building it to the specifications that they need for their specific geographic location.
You got rain patterns and ecological and just geological differences in their particles. Their defined sediment is different across the country. So it's not a one size, but a lot of times municipalities want to just kind of pull that in and just say, I'm just trying to take the last path of least resistance and just, and that's where it gets a little bit more difficult to further define. But other than that, once we can get that defined, it's kind of smooth sailing at that point.
I got you. So make sure you reach out. His team is available. We'll have all the links in the show notes. But all right, so let's talk about some green infrastructure. Stormwater I consider stormwater very it's all concrete. It's all under the ground. We don't get to see it a lot of times. Like we talk about the runoff and then it goes down a drain and then now we got to deal with it. But what you've got in the aquaponic is something that I consider an opportunity to have a little bit of the pretty side, right? Of something that is effective, but not just ugly and under the ground that we don't get to see. So I don't want to take away too much of your thunder, but so go ahead and explain it to everyone, the idea, why, how it works of the aquaponic, which is one of your newer product offerings.
So right before that, let me just set it up a little bit to talk a little bit about the end of pipe application. So, traditionally, as I mentioned, we've got the Aqua Swirl and the Aqua Filter. And if you think about those, that's kind of like a buffer. So you've got your outfall that's ultimately going to lead to a river. Right. Usually you'd have at the end of pipe, right before that outfall, you would have this buffer, if you would, for a hydrodynamic separator or a filter that's removing all that prior to hitting that, like you said, they're hidden. They're out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
So with the aquaponic, it's a great opportunity, like I said, to aesthetically please and meet the needs. So we're able to pull this type of technology out such that it's now point source. So now you've got a parking lot, and green infrastructure is kind of a combination of water quality and water quantity. So if we're in a Walmart parking lot and you see these bio swales, and then you can kind of just see it's just like a large culvert, if you will. If you got sheet flow coming in off of the parking lot in this bio swale, that's great in that you're recharging the groundwater. It's going to infiltrate. It's going to take a while, but it's going to infiltrate, and then you've got the volume to hold that while it soaks into the ground. So with the aquaponic, what we're able to do is the best of both worlds to integrate this green infrastructure in such a way that it's sloped. Water comes into that swale. It's sloped down to this aquaponic device where we've got plants, and we've got a pea gravel layer that basically is just more for kind of a mulch layer, if you will, for aesthetics. But then we've got our proprietary media that is removing the fines and the hydrocarbons and just metals and all different types of things, going down into a reservoir where we've got wicks. So we're kind of using the old aquaponics, hydroponic, technology.
Okay.
We're basically allowing it to, in antecedent periods when it's not raining, we still got a reservoir of water that can wick up and actually feed the plants. So very similar to the other type of devices, they're all based on a diameter, and they range from 2 foot all the way to 13 foot in diameter. And again, that surface area is based on the loading rate, the flow rate that's flowing into it. But what's really unique in that same scenario in that Walmart parking lot, vector and mosquitoes and the West Nile has always been, a top of mind type of a concern. And when you've got these swales, they do a great job, but it takes a long time for that water to soak in and get ready for that next rain event. And here in the Southeast, we get, 50, 60 inches of rain in a year, and we've got to get ready for that next gully washer. You see these unprecedented events like in Fort Lauderdale, you got a 1,000-year storm event, a 0.1% happening that this happens. And that's volume control, obviously. But what's really unique with this aquaponic is we're always filtering that bioswale. So even though
Right.
when the storm subsides, we're still filtering that water, getting it out, and we're connected to the storm drain at that point. Again, it's going to get to the same spot in terms of that river, creek, or stream, but we're able to now evacuate that swale, getting ready for that next rain event. And it's tremendous technology because we're able to do that at very high flow rates, up to 7 gallons per minute per square foot. And it's actually the leading green infrastructure device that's been verified and certified in New Jersey. So we went through rigorous amounts of testing, peer reviewed, and to meet that accolade. So we're really, really happy about it, really proud of it. And we're starting to do some field testing now out west in Washington. So that's underway. So we're really excited about the future for the green infrastructure. But like you said, it's beautifying. Now I can see my water, my stormwater device actually working, and it's got benefits of plants. And we're engineers. We really let the landscape architect dictate the colors of the plants and all that kind of stuff. We have a call list of what you can choose. But again, it's going to be drought tolerant and or season or what zone you're in. So, but we're not getting too much into the plants. We're letting the experts deal with that stuff.
I got you. I mentioned before, I know we help about being a municipality and helping out and kind of answering questions for us as a city, but you also provide a lot of assistance to engineering firms. I believe that you've got a very robust database or archive of information for them, and that they can get, access on your website. Is that still accurate? Or, what would you say to the engineer that has a project other than calling you, right? I mean, because we would love them to call you, but the situation is a situation. The engineer may not want to call you. So if they want to email and not get on the phone or whatever, do you have some resources for them that they can utilize to help them with their project design?
We do. We've got a PDA. We've got a project design assistant that they can log in. We also have an engineering portal that's password protected, so that sometimes they're working. The engineers are working after hours, and they need a DWG or a CAD file, PDF. We have all of those for all of our products on an engineering portal. But ultimately, we've got representatives all across the country, that are specialists in that area. So if I've got an agent in Indiana, he's going to be an expert of all the rules and know the basis of design and can really help design, even in some markets where they may be just kind of getting started and not know where. We can look at, show them examples of what other states and other municipalities are doing. Just a wealth of knowledge on the sales side as well as on the website as well. We've got animations and videos that describe. We're trying to be out at the specific stormwater events, like SESWA, and we participate in WEFTEC and StormCon and some of the leading conferences across the country.
I got you.
That awareness.
I got you. Well, we'll link in the show notes and in everything. We'll have links to how you can get hold of AquaShield, how you can get hold of Eric. If you want to reach out to him, if you've got a project going on, if you just want to see some other stuff, we'll probably also do a link specifically to the aquaponic, just because there's some visuals there. I think everybody should be able to have a chance to see on how it all works with the hydroponic aspect of it, and then on into the filtration, because we're on the other side of the pipe than what AquaShield's normally doing. So I think that's kind of neat to see. But final thoughts, my friend. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this and visiting with me on the podcast and kind of getting the word out about the aquaponic. But just in general, any final thoughts you have for the listeners? Anything you'd like to share with them? Just
I just want to thank you for your efforts in putting this together and bringing awareness in the spotlight to stormwater. I mean, it's fantastic. I'd love to support your efforts, and anything that we or AquaShield can do to help your cause would love to participate. So really appreciate your time and again your patience in getting this thing set up, man.
Yeah. Hey, busy's good. Busy's good. So I do thank you a lot. And hey, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Stormwater World podcast. Do you have something you'd like to discuss? Do you have an opposing opinion regarding something you heard during this episode? Let's talk about it. Click on the link in the show notes to sign up for a future episode. I'd love to visit with you about what's happening and how you see things unfolding in your stormwater world.